Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years. Pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. So we only have a few more of these The Math Nobody Does episodes left. And this week I'm talking about retreats. I think retreats are one of those offerings that a lot of people in the yoga professional space really feel like is on their bucket list of things to offer. That was me, honestly, for a long time. I've never actually pulled it off because I had a retreat where I rented out an English manor in the countryside, but it was scheduled for June of 2020 and travel wasn't really happening at that point. But we're going to get into the numbers of retreats, and this is from me talking to folks who do retreat experiences all the time. This episode will cover the cost of travel retreats, but also consider doing weekend retreats that are near your home. For a lot of first-time retreat hosts, it makes the math come out a little bit cleaner when you start closer to your home base. And of course, if you could please do me a solid and like, follow, subscribe to the podcast from wherever you're listening, and make sure you forward this episode to your favorite yoga teacher bestie who you have been considering hosting a retreat with. If you want a more in-depth conversation about the yoga industry and some real-world practical tips on how to make it all work for you with your particular career path, head to the back room and join us in conversation. The doors are open for the whole month of July for free, so we can talk about the trend report online, but out of the eyeballs of the watching yoga organizations. It is just us in there. And I am so grateful for the many of you who have been doing the math of the yoga profession along with me during this series. I was really surprised how math resonated with so many of y'all. But here we are. We're going to do the math again. Let's get into the math of yoga retreats. At some point in almost every yoga professional's career, the retreat idea arrives. It arrives because retreats look like a financial opportunity. Let's say you have an audience and you have a practice to share, and you find a beautiful venue and you fill it with 12 or 15 spots at $1,500 or $2,000 each. The math seems pretty straightforward. And then you either run the retreat and discover that the math is not as straightforward as you looked, or you plan the retreat, then start to add up the actual costs and realize the margin is so much thinner than you were expecting. Today, we're going to build the honest retreat math before you commit to that deposit. So here's the mental math that I think most yoga professionals do when a retreat idea arrives. 12 participants at $1,500 each equals $18,000 in revenue. The venue costs maybe $5,000, and that leaves $13,000 left over. Even after expenses, that feels like a meaningful income from what is essentially an extended long weekend. The problem with this math is that it stops quite a bit too early. It counts the revenue and the most obvious cost and assumes the rest is totally profit. And I'm here to tell you, my friends, the rest is not profit. The rest is a series of costs that most people do not see until they're already in the middle of planning. So let's build the real picture together. We will use a 4-night retreat with 12 participants at $1,500 per person as our model. Our gross revenue is $18,000. That's how much you take before everything else. Let's talk about venue cost first. A retreat center that accommodates 12 participants with lodging, meals, and shared practice space typically is going to run $150 to $350 per person per night. So we're going to say at $200 per person per night for 4 nights, that is $9,600 for the group. Many venues also require a deposit of 25 to 50% to hold the dates. So that is $2,400 to $4,800 that you need to access to months before any payments from the participants have arrived. Most venue contracts also include a per person minimum, meaning you pay for a minimum number of guests regardless of how many actually attend. So if your minimum is 10 and you fill 8 spots, you still pay for 10. And there's travel costs. If the venue is not local to you, you're buying, of course, your own transportation and possibly lodging before the retreat begins. Budget $300 to $800 depending on the distance of where you're going to. There's marketing costs. Getting 12 people to commit to a retreat requires significant marketing effort. Email campaigns, social media, possibly paid advertising. A conservative marketing budget for a retreat is $300 to $600. There's payment processing fees, which we often don't talk about, but are really expensive. If participants pay by credit card, and most of them do, you're paying 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. On $18,000 in revenue, that is approximately $550 just in processing fees. There's supplies and materials, anything that you bring to enhance the experience. Now, I am a big fan of this, so for me, this budget is high. Think printed material, small gifts, props, aromatherapy, specialty items. You're going to budget $200 to $500. Of course, your time, which we often forget. Planning a retreat takes significant time. Venue research, contract negotiation, marketing, participant communication, logistics coordination. Conservatively, this is 40 to 60 hours of work that happens before the retreat even begins. And that time has a value, even if it is not a direct cash cost. So let's add it up. The venue's $9,600, travel $500, marketing $400, processing $550, supplies $300. Total direct costs to you are $11,350. Now your gross revenue is still the same. It's $18,000. The margin, your gross margin is $6,650. Now from that $6,650, you are paying self-employment tax on the net income, potentially splitting it with a co-facilitator if you have one, and compensating yourself for the 60, possibly plus hours of planning work plus the retreat itself. Now, this is meaningful income from one event, but it's not the $13,000 that the simple math suggested, and it requires filling all 12 spots, which is not guaranteed. If you fill 10 spots instead of 12, the gross revenue, $15,000 instead of $18,000, but you have the same costs, and your gross margin is $3,650. 2 empty spots cost you $3,000 in revenue and nothing in costs. So here's what this means for your retreat strategy. Retreats can be financially worthwhile. They really can. The income from a well-run retreat with a full roster is real and meaningful, but the margin for error is thin, and the financial risk is front-loaded because you're paying venue deposits before participants have signed up. So price your retreat based on the real cost structure, not the aspirational one. Many yoga professionals underprice their retreats because they're doing the simple math instead of the real math. If your venue costs $9,600 and your other costs add $2,000 and you want to earn $5,000 for your time, you need $16,600 in revenue. With 12 participants, that's $1,383 a person, minimum. before any buffer for partial enrollment. Build in that buffer for partial enrollment. Price as if you will fill 10 spots instead of 12. And if you fill all 12, you earn more. Great. But if you fill 10, at least you still break even. And be careful with those deposits. Do not commit to a venue deposit until you have enough participant interest to be confident that you can fill the minimum. Consider requiring participant deposits before you pay the venue. And retreats get more profitable over time. And I don't want you to forget that. So as you build a reputation and a returning participant base, you do get more profit. The first one that you host is often the hardest financially. So do not let a thin margin for your first retreat discourage you from building towards the retreat model if it genuinely fits your work. Okay, so the retreat math, this is one of my favorite ones because the math really does work here, but it does require being done honestly before you sign the deposit check. So run your numbers first. Price for the real costs. Build in a buffer in case you don't fill every spot. And then go create something extraordinary. All right, let's go get to work, my friends. And I will catch you around the water cooler next time.